Hi, my name's Mary Jo Orzech. I'm the Scholarly Communications Librarian here at Drake Memorial Library at the College at Brockport. College at Brockport is a four-year comprehensive school. We have a variety of majors, primarily undergraduate with some master's programs as well. Our library thought that the American Soldier Project would hit a wonderful sweet spot for us because it really helped us to engage our students and community. It really helped us to enhance um, uh, um, working with primary source unfiltered documents. That was a way to bring the archives outside of the archives to the students at the desktop where they happened to be, to meet them where they were. It was a way for us to get involved with something that was low cost, low risk, but very high reward in terms of this authenticity piece. So for us, it also talked about digital preservation. It played to scholarly communication. It really was a win for us in so many ways. And so we were delighted when both history and our social work programs, classes decided to join us for this. It really came to life, and they really jumped on the chance as well. It really became a win for us to be able to work on something that was larger than our own community, on our own campus. And so really working with folks at Virginia Tech was a win. Zooniverse was new to all of us, but it was clear and uncluttered and easy to use. And so didn't require a lot of training. We were able to really get up and running. We did it in one of our computer library classrooms that was already, had the PC set up. The students could work either individually or in small groups, small pairs, whatever they chose. It really gave us a chance to have them think a little bit about, do something that was really contributing in a meaningful way to a larger whole, as well as enhancing their own learning and understanding of what events were like back then. And it really brought up, to my mind, it brought up a real range of emotions. The transcripts were so unfiltered, and so the language, the expressions, the experiences of the soldiers at that time really came to life. It couldn't help. Some of them were very poignant. It brought up a real range of emotions, everything from sadness to laughter, and a little bit everything in between. The best part for me, again, to wrap up, and I'm going to let my colleague take it a little further, but for me, it was just the idea that you're contributing to something bigger than yourself, and you couldn't help when you left feel better than when you came in. It was very uplifting for us. We'd love to be involved more with these kinds of things. We're very excited for the opportunity to have partnered with you. We brought in community people as well. We had some folks from our Friends of the Library group. We had folks from outside other community areas as well. And so thank you is really my message to you. And now I'll turn it over to Dr. Dauenhauer from social work.
It's not fair, Mary Jo. You had a script, it looked like. And here I'm at home, like my dog is over there. If I would have known it would be a little more formal, I would have stayed in the office, but this is strange times, right? So we're all kind of working remotely anyway. So
yeah, it's part of the aesthetic.
Right. So this is, I think, our second year doing this, and Mary Jo, you may have to remind me of sort of how I heard about it. Maybe you reached out to me, or I read something on the college email says about an opportunity, but it really worked out where, so the class I teach is called Aging Issues in America. And I also oversee a lot of intergenerational learning on the campus, where we have older adults in the classroom with college students across all different kinds of majors. But this was the class that I teach, and so it's an evening class. And it just so happened that it was right around Veterans Day. So the timing was really perfect. And so I try to do a lot of work. Every class we do something where the elders that are enrolled in my class engage with the students. And this seemed like a really perfect opportunity to get out of our normal classroom, go into a computer lab, help, obviously with community service, but being able to pair older adults with traditional age college students in terms of reading these transcripts. So just some anecdotes. You know, so we know that handwriting or cursive writing isn't necessarily taught too much in schools, and so we're also dealing with an older generation that is very familiar with reading cursive writing, and so it was really amazing to see how quickly the older adult students in my class were able to read through this cursive, and seeing a lot of younger students struggling with, oh, I don't know what this word is, and seeing that partnership of older adults helping some of the students figure out what some of these words were. So I think from an intergenerational perspective, it provided another opportunity for students in my class to work together collaboratively and sort of see that they both had different strengths. So it may have taken the older adults a little bit longer to kind of figure out how this works. So the students could jump into it, but then they weren't necessarily as quick in deciphering, what it was. But similar to what Mary Jo said, a lot of comments about just seeing examples of racism, I think, in a number of the transcripts. How some people felt, that they weren't necessarily being respected as much for the work that they were doing, and why couldn't they, go home sooner, talking about just challenges with families. So I think it really provided sort of a window into these soldiers' experiences, but also that it probably wasn't too different than just certain modern day issues that we see with troops that are deployed and so forth. So I think there was that commonality. But again, a really great experience. I had a number of students that actually continued doing it on their own afterwards, which was pretty enlightening as well. So overall, a really good experience that pulled my students together, contributing to the community, and it helped that Mary Jo had I think some cider and donuts that evening as well. So the students were surprised they had some food, but it was a good sort of a class bonding experience.
I done it once with a class of public history students, and it was a perfect exercise. It was applied learning. It was service learning, and it was an example of what has not been my strength to date in terms of public history, which is the digital realm. Yeah, so the class is called Public History, and public history really is the field, that in which we study the fields of the historical profession that engage publics. So museums, archives, libraries, government historians, national park interpreters, memorial designers, etc. So digital history is increasingly a big part of the field of public history, presenting material in a way that is framed not for necessarily a scholarly audience or student audience, but for a public audience. So, working in the digital platform with some of the material that, oral histories and testimonials are very much a kind of core part of what public historians draw on in their museum exhibits or their public exhibits or whatever it might be. So on many different levels, this project was really in a kind of sweet spot for a class like public history. We had transcribed some of the surveys for, I'm pretty sure they were all African-American soldiers, and it was survey questions pertaining to the race and their experience, racism and their experience. So one of the things, I looked through as many of the documents as I could, both over student shoulders and going through them myself. And one of the things that really just kind of stood out to me was just the mundane reality of it, of these short little survey answers. And there were a few answers that really signaled in a very discreet way something bigger that was going on. So I'm assuming I'm kind of remaking my own memory of it, that students brought out some of those points. So, they highlighting things that they saw in individuals, survey testimonial, and how it brought to life, and this is what we try to do in our history classes, and using primary historical documents to kind of flesh out what we're otherwise talking about in broader terms, broad currents of historical events and so on.
The bringing to life, I find, is something that's commonly compelling. So did you observe that in your students, that maybe they brought to it the assumption that this was going to be somehow dull or boring, but it had been brought to life for them?
I would say, like in any class, you have a range of perception, experience, or at least what the students convey to you. So some seemed a little bit more engaged than others, but I would say the spectrum moved towards a higher level of engagement, right? So it was a very positive experience. And the material, I think, is material that has potential for being compelling. At least this project was World War II era survey, so it's war at a time of national mobilization, at a time in which we're still in the tail end of a kind of 15-year myth making about World War II as a formative moment in our collective lives. So I think for all of those reasons, students were really digging it.
There were 65,000 transcripts that had to be transcribed 3 times each, or multiple times each, in order to, calibrate in on the exact, making sure that everything was correct. So this was quite an undertaking, and the idea that in 2 years they were able to, Virginia Tech was able to do it is just, I think it's just a real testament.
That's amazing.
A lot of folks, how many people contributed. And I want you to know, Brockport contributed over 200 transcriptions each year, so both the first year and the second year. So I was just
Wow, great.
year or two that it was only an hour or two that it didn't take that long. It was just like one class session, but again, I think it was, it still gives me goosebumps when I think about it. And again, it's becoming a favorite event in the library in terms of having a sense that you're making a difference. So I think it was a win-win for everybody.